It was a cold, foggy morning in the small village of Hemsbridge when the news spread like wildfire. Old man Granger had been found dead in his farmhouse. The villagers were shocked, not only because Granger was a well-known figure in the community, but also because his death was anything but natural. The police were quick to label it a murder, and the search for the killer began. Detective Arthur Lane, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving the most puzzling cases, arrived in Hemsbridge to take charge. He was a tall, wiry man with sharp blue eyes and a calm demeanor. As he stepped into the farmhouse, he noticed the eerie silence that hung over the place. The air was thick with the scent of damp wood and something sinister. Granger's body had been discovered in the living room, slumped over his armchair. A single gunshot wound to the chest had ended his life. The murder weapon, an old revolver, lay on the floor nearby. At first glance, it seemed like a straightforward case of suicide, but Detective Lane wasn't convinced. Why would a man like Granger, who had no history of depression, suddenly take his own life? Lane muttered to himself as he examined the scene. The farmhouse itself was a cluttered mess, filled with dusty furniture, stacks of old newspapers, and shelves lined with trinkets from Granger's travels. Lane noticed that the room showed no signs of a struggle, but something felt off. He knelt beside the body and spotted a small, crumpled piece of paper clutched in Granger's hand. Carefully, he pried it open. It was a torn fragment of a letter, with only a few words legible. "Meet me at the farmhouse tonight. Don't trust anyone." Lane's curiosity was piqued. Who had Granger been planning to meet? And why the warning not to trust anyone? The detective decided to interview the villagers to piece together Granger's final hours. The first person he spoke to was Mrs. Eliza Hargrove, Granger's neighbor. She was a frail, elderly woman with a sharp tongue and a tendency to gossip. Granger was a private man, she said, her voice trembling. But lately, he'd been acting strange. He kept talking about some big discovery he'd made. Said it would change everything. I thought he was just rambling, but now, I don't know. Next, Lane visited the local pub, where Granger was known to spend his evenings. The bartender, a burly man named Tom, recalled seeing Granger the night before. He was in high spirits, Tom said. Even bought a round of drinks for everyone. Said he had something to celebrate. But then he got a phone call, and his mood changed. He left in a hurry, muttering something about keeping it safe. The final clue came from Granger's estranged nephew, Henry, who had arrived in the village just days before the murder. Henry was a shifty character with a history of petty crimes, and Lane immediately suspected him of foul play. "I had nothing to do with this," Henry insisted when Lane confronted him. "I came here to make amends with my uncle, not to kill him." But Lane wasn't convinced. He searched Henry's belongings and found a map of the farmhouse, with a specific room circled in red. When Lane investigated the room, he discovered a hidden compartment in the floorboards. Inside was a small, locked box. Using a set of lockpicks, Lane opened the box and found a stack of old documents. They revealed that Granger had stumbled upon a long-lost treasure buried somewhere on his property, a treasure that had been sought after for generations. The torn letter in Granger's hand was a warning from an anonymous source, urging him to be careful. As Lane pieced together the evidence, he realized that Granger's murder was no random act of violence. It was a calculated move by someone who wanted the treasure for themselves. But who? The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Lane discovered a set of muddy footprints leading from the farmhouse to the edge of the forest. He followed the trail and found a makeshift campsite, complete with a tent and supplies. Hidden among the supplies was a journal belonging to Henry. The journal detailed Henry's plan to steal the treasure and frame someone else for Granger's murder. But things had gone wrong when Granger confronted him, and Henry had panicked, shooting his uncle in a fit of rage. With the evidence in hand, Lane arrested Henry and brought him to justice. The treasure was never found, but the mystery of the Farmhouse Fatal was finally solved. As Lane left Hemsbridge, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The case had been closed, but the secrets of the farmhouse still lingered, waiting for someone else to uncover them.